It's time once again for another edition of Shelf Life Book Reviews Online. As always, I thank you very much for taking the time to watch my videos. And if you have any friends who are interested in books, please let them know of my book review channels on YouTube and Facebook. Today I'm bringing to your attention two true crime books, both Canadian crime books, and they're very interesting, fascinating, and definitely highly recommended. The first book is Murder on the Inside, the true story of the deadly riot at Kingston Penitentiary by Catherine Fogarty. This is published by BIBLIOASIS and it retails for $24.99. If you like true crime books, this is an interesting book. It's not about a serial killer crime, but it is the story of the Kingston Penitentiary and the notorious riot that took place April 14, 1971. The Kingston Penitentiary is the oldest penitentiary in Canada. It was built in 1835 and had quite a reputation. Noted British writer Charles Dickens even came to the library the prison in 1842, and he looked at it and he had both positive and negative things to say about it. In the 1930s, the Globe and Mail had an article about one man who had been held at the prison in solitary confinement for 23 years. So over the years, there was debate about the prison, but one of the problems was overcrowding, short staffing, and things like that. And the inmates started to rebel against it. And no one really listened to them or wanted to help them. So it was April 14, 1971, that the great prison riot took place. Billy Knight was one of the instigators and heads of it. He and his friends took 6 prison guards hostage, and they basically threatened to kill them if their demands weren't met. Now, it started out as an orderly sort of prison riot, but there were other different factions within the prison who took it upon themselves that it was the time for chaos. And what happened was there were a group of people known as the undesirables. They were the child sex offenders and the prison snitches who told on other inmates. They were targeted by other groups, and they were viciously assaulted, beaten. Actually, 2 of them were murdered. Their faces were battered beyond recognition, and the other 14 that ended up in the hospital, they were in pretty bad condition too, but they survived. So there was negotiations between the inmates and the prison officials outside the prison, and they refused to give in to their demands. Now, what happened was those inside the prison were worried that the army was going to come in and storm the prison. So they set up, barricades, mattresses, and everything they could find. Now, there was one man who was an inmate there. His name was Barry Mackenzie, and he was hailed as a hero because he made sure the 6 prison guards were not hurt in any manner. A lot of the inmates wanted to kill the prison guards, and he basically said no. He basically he protected them and kept them alive. So the prison riot went on for 4 days, and it was finally settled. The people who were responsible for the deaths, they went to court, and their sentence was added to the sentence that they had in the prison. So the author, Catherine Fogarty, gives a sort of synopsis on the lives of those, who were part of the prison riots. And a lot of the prisoners, they died, either in prison or if they were released, they got back to a life of crime, and they didn't last very long. So it's really a fascinating book on, a classic prison riot that took place in 1971. Now, another true crime book that is highly recommended is The Beatle Bandit, a serial bank robber's deadly heist, a cross-country manhunt, and the insanity plea that shook the nation by Nate Hendley. This is published by Dundurn, and it retails for $21.99. Why is it called the Beatle Bandit? Well, it took place in the 1960s, 1964, when the Beatlemania was coming. And a gentleman, Matthew Carey Smith, he was the man who was the Beatle Bandit. He was a member of the Royal Canadian Navy. He was in and out of jobs, and he was fascinated with guns. And this was a time when you could go in and get a gun, and he actually went and got a gun, and he used a phony name. Now, of course, there was no gun checks at that time, so they couldn't verify who he was or, where he came from. So anyways, this man started robbing banks. They were, in the beginning, non-violent, but one particular bank robbery that took place in North York in 1964 changed all that. He decided to go in with a Charles de Gaulle mask, and he got a Beatles wig. One of the Beatles, the long-haired wig. And he also had a CKEY t-shirt. That was a radio station in Toronto. So he had a big guitar case with him, but inside was a rifle. So when he went in the bank and said, "This is a hold-up, give me your money," a lot of people thought it was a publicity stunt because it had the radio station's call numbers on his t-shirt, CKEY. But soon they realized this was not a joke. He took out the gun and he threatened people. He ultimately escaped with $25,000, which at that time was a fair amount of money. In today's economy, likely that would be in the several hundreds of thousands of dollars. But he escaped from the bank. Now, one of the customers in the bank, his name was Jack Blank, and he was an Army veteran. At the time, banks had loaded pistols in the bank in case there was a robbery. So he got the gun from the bank manager, and he went outside and pursued Matthew Carey Smith. He shot at him and missed him. So Carey Smith went back. He had the rifle, and he shot Jack Blank, and he pretty well blew his head off. He killed him instantly. So what became a bank robbery was now also a murder. So the police were in pursuit of him, and they had no idea what he looked like, of course, because he had the mask and the Beatle wig. So they pursued him for several months, and he pulled off other bank jobs. In fact, he met a couple of people, a man and a woman, and they became friends. Now, they ultimately found out what he did, but they didn't turn him in. The girl, who became a sort of girlfriend, she even bought him a car for like $100. So it became a getaway car that he could use for his next bank job. So he was eventually rounded up and charged. Now, there was mental illness in his family, and so they basically, his defense team tried to say he was mentally unstable, schizophrenic, whatever you wanted to call him, but he was found guilty by a jury, and he was sentenced to be hung. At that time, Canada did have the death penalty, and of course that was changed several years later. Now, eventually, Smith, he did kill himself in jail. So that ended his story. So it's a fascinating look, back into the 1960s at a crime really that rocked the Toronto area with this Beatle Bandit, as they called him. So it's a fascinating book. So if you like the Beatles and you like crime, you're going to say, "We love you, yeah, we love the book." And it's highly recommended. So those are the two publications I wanted to draw to your attention this week. Hopefully when you're at your bookstore, you will seek them out. So as always, I welcome your comments, positive or negative, about my book reviews. So until we meet again, stay safe, stay sane, stay social distancing, and do stay in touch. Bye for now.